beergate. Everyone is talking about it. It's in the media cycle. The Daily Mail is loving it. But I'm going to argue that beergate, partygate, it's not important. It's all a distraction. The press are distracting us from the real issues. That is the cost of living crisis, the energy crisis, the climate crisis. Now, Keir Starmer gave a speech and said that if he is offered a fixed penalty notice from the police, then he will resign. Now, I'm going to argue that it kind of doesn't really matter whoever resigns, because in the broad scheme of things, things will stay the same. So if Starmer goes, then he's probably going to be replaced by another Labour right-winger, because the chance of a centre-left or broadly left-wing candidate getting on the ballot is next to nothing. If Boris Johnson were to somehow resign in the next 6 months to a year, then that doesn't matter, because he's just going to be replaced by another Tory. Fundamentally, the economic system will still stay the same. People are going to continue to struggle to pay their bills. People working full-time are going to be barely surviving. So, Labour's policies, currently under Keir Starmer, tinker around the edge, and they don't robustly challenge the Tories. And the Tories' ideology and the policies, well, they impoverish the majority of people. So why are all of us so fixated on beergate? Look, I'm not saying it's unimportant. What I'm saying is the outcomes of beergate or partygate will make zero difference to the material conditions of the majority. Now, the Bank of England has said that inflation is set to rise by 10%, with inflation possibly lasting for years, not months. So as terrible as things are now, we're now being told that things are going to get worse. So whether the police find Starmer or not, it doesn't really matter, because those in positions of power are treated differently to the working class. Now, after the whole Partygate fiasco, number 10 will receive £50 fines. That's a small price to pay when you're the Prime Minister who's earning 100 grand a year. Yet those with no institutional power are pursued. Harsher fines are given to ordinary people, and statistics show that's disproportionately people of colour. The analysis shows people from BAME backgrounds were handed fines at a rate 1.6 times higher than white people between March 27th and May 25th, with black and Asian people 1.8 times more likely to be handed tickets. Young men aged between 18 and 34 from BAME backgrounds were overrepresented by around twice the rate of young white men in the same age groups, the data suggests. There is a correlation between your connection to power, or your lack of connection to power, and how people are treated from the law. So working class, and especially people of colour, face the full force of the law. But the guy who makes the lockdown rules, the guy who's Prime Minister, gets a slap on the wrist. Now, Keir Starmer, whilst not quite as powerful as the Prime Minister, is leader of a major British institution. So he's not going to face a life-changing consequences for the police either. So what is all of this? This is a class war. It's how it's always worked. It's how it's always going to be unless we change things. Because institutions are too scared to hold those in power to account. And why? Because those people in power are also in those institutions. So there's a revolving door between power institutions. So, of course, they're going to be soft on those in power. And then they come down extremely hard on those on lower socio-economic classes. And it's just easy work for the police. Now, the Canary has covered this extensively, which is the policing bill. Now, the most authoritarian aspects of the policing bill was sidelined when it went through the Lords, but now those bad bits of the bill are coming back into the new protest law. That was always going to happen with this very right-wing Tory government, very authoritarian government. They were going to make sure that the most anti-democratic practices, anti-democratic laws were going to make its way back into policy. And this looks like exactly what's going to be happening. So I ask you, why should we care so much about beergate and partygate? Because regardless of the outcome, regardless of who resigns, regardless who's the leader of these major political parties, the class war, the big crises we all face, will remain.